So I wanted to go over a little bit about the supplies, just to make sure you've got what you need. The first thing you need is some kind of surface to do your decoupage on. So it could be flat. It just could be it needs to be a firm surface. It doesn't have to be flat, but something that is a hard surface, something that will hold. It's a substrate that will hold your papers. You also need paper, and any kind of paper will work. The paper I used in the project is it's a very strong origami paper. Actually, it's called Yuzen paper, but if you don't have that, scrapbook paper, magazine pages work, all those things, any type of paper. Photos, not glossy photos, but photocopied photos from a laser printer would work. And there's also paper napkins that have beautiful prints, and there's just so many things you can decoupage. So the base sealer that you would need is Mod Podge, either matte or gloss. There's also a satin. So these are great to have. The varnish, you could use polyacrylic. It's something you can get at Home Depot, or you can find at a craft store. Any of things that it's an acrylic-based varnish. Varnishes are different than mediums. A varnish is your final sealer. You don't want to. You want to have a final sealer even over the Mod Podge, because it's not waterproof. It will, if you get water on it, it'll start to dissolve. So you want something that's going to be a top coat, that says a top coat. Golden Acrylics makes a top coat that's fabulous. They make a hard top coat. They make different types. Another thing to have is a good pair of scissors for cutting fine details. A pair of tweezers, especially if you have very tiny pieces of paper. An X-Acto knife is helpful. A bristle brush, this is a glue brush, but you can use a bristle brush. Even a cheap chip brush at the home improvement store will be fine. Make sure though, when you use a brush for the very first time, even no matter what the brush is, they may have a little shedding. So what I like to do is, before I use a brush, I don't know if you see that, but there's a little hair that comes out. Just kind of gently pull the hairs and make sure that they're not coming out before you start to do anything. Always have a little can of water and some napkins or paper towels nearby. Okay, since the original recording, I recorded in gallery view, so I'm just going to redo the demo. So I've got a Hake brush that I've primed with craft paint, just some plain craft paint, and I first sanded basically it's just a brush with a plain wood brush, and I just sanded and smoothed off little extra edges. And decoupage is just a French word for gluing something onto something. It's basically a very old craft that the French furniture makers didn't want to have to paint on the furniture, so they started to print some images, and they just glued them on. And pretty much the idea is to have the image disappear into the background. So what I did, as you can see, this has been cut out with scissors, and the white background is similar to the off-white that I painted. You can do it, you don't have to do it that way. Like in this sample, I did it and you can see the borders, but the real true decoupage is actually where the background blends with the picture and it looks like it's been painted on. So, but we don't have to do we can do whatever we want, because we're creative crafters. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some matte, which is my favorite, the matte Mod Podge. This is actually a glue and a sealer, both. You can use other products, you can use gel mediums and different glues, but I just use Mod Podge because it's easy to find. You can get it at most craft stores, pretty much everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and put, actually what I do, because the paper swells up a little bit when it gets damp, and that's what causes wrinkles. So I actually put the glue on the paper first, and just let the water or the moisture kind of swell up the fibers. And I'm going to put wherever I can just put the glue on anywhere on the surface of the brush Or it could be, this could be a panel or a tray, it could be just about anything. I just picked a brush because it's what I happen to have on hand. You can use tweezers if you want to pick up the picture. And I'm just going to put it here. I'm just going to put it down. What's nice is when you have it wet on both sides, you can reposition it as you wish. So like I'm just going to move this around a little bit, and I think I'm going to move that. Before the glue sets, you want to be able to move it around. Once you press it in to the surface, then you're going to have a little bit more trouble moving it around. Then what you do is you just take the sealer and go right over it, but going from the center of the piece to the outside edges, and that will help remove wrinkles, and it also just makes for a nice smooth flat lay design. So I've got these little designs here, and I think that's pretty cool. I wish I'd had a third piece. So in fact, I'll show you what I did. To get these little details, you just take a pair of scissors, small scissors, and here I'm just going to cut out, I don't know, I'll just take this and I'm going to cut a straight line, and I'm just going to cut really small. Actually, with this, I don't have to really go around the edges really detailed because of the paper being the same color as the background, so I don't really have to be detailed. If I was doing one where the color background was different, then I would be more careful, but I'm actually able to go pretty fast. So I'm going to grab some glue, put it on the back. If it goes on the front, that's okay too. Put a little bit on the bottom of this. And now I'll just press it down. See that? I kind of wanted to make a third element there, so a little bit more glue, Mod Podge. I'll just let that dry. I think it's better to have that, just the three elements on that. So now I want to share with you how to varnish. So this is going to have to, I'll take some time to dry this. And this side is already ready, but I'm going to wait until this dries. And I'm going to bring in this other piece that I had started with this has basically the black craft paint, and I have larger pieces. Now, to get the larger pieces, it's not any more difficult to glue down larger pieces than it's just the same technique. I brush on the back side with the glue, a thin coat, and the surface that I want to glue it to, I brush a very thin coat and then just put it on and kind of smooth it down with your fingers. So to do the varnish, there's all kinds of different things you could use. You could use something like this, Decoupage satin varnish. You could use, my favorite actually though, is I call it a matte varnish, but what it is, it's just a mixture. I kind of made a concoction where I mixed a gloss and a matte and just kind of got a finish that just almost disappears. So I'm going to go ahead and varnish that. And what you need for a varnish brush should be a little softer than your, just a little softer. So I have a brush here. That's just it's a watercolor brush, and I probably shouldn't be using my watercolor brush, but as long as I clean it, it should be okay. So to varnish my piece, I'm just going to put on a thin coat. Just basically follow the same way that you did the glue. Just kind of go from the inside and move yourself out. And thin coats are always better than thick coats. When you do a varnish, you don't want to over brush it. You just kind of lightly brush it. And I'll do my last side. It's better to do thin coats and make several coats rather than one thick one. I'm also going to just do the top. Seal that. And if I decide I want to go a little more glossy, I can just take my gloss varnish and go over it. It's fun to try different things. That's the thing about being a crafter. You can just do what you want. It's your choice. And you can decide what kind of images you want. You can use magazine pages. You can cut out, actually you can even take kids' drawings as long as they're, I would probably suggest if you take children's art and you can photocopy them with using a laser printer. Don't use an inkjet because the ink from the inkjet will just bleed once you put the glue on. But if you do something with a laser type printer, you can put your kids' artwork on anything. Wouldn't that be a fun gift? So here it is, and I'll wait for that to dry, and you can see I've got this little milky edge here. That should just be removed. Just kind of check your work and just make sure there's no dripping. See, there's some here, so I'm just going to wipe it off. Okay, so now I'm ready to use some, just go ahead and put some, and seal this whole thing. I think I'll just start with this side because this side I did a little bit earlier. And same, I'm just going to do a thin coat. And you just have to keep putting on coats until where the paper and the paint match. You'll see that there's no, you'll see that it doesn't, you can't tell where one starts and the other ends.